What's up, guys? Today at Unacademy, we are starting a new series that is international relations. This part has not been dealt with in the previous lectures, but has got much more importance and relevance in the current examinations. This series would be presented by me. My name is Aditya Mishra. I have done my graduation in mechanical engineering from NIT Bhopal. If you want to know more about me, I have done my IES 2015 attempt. That was the first attempt, and I'm waiting for my mains result. But the more important point is that my optional was political science and IR. Hence, I have dealt with this subject to the largest extent possible. Now, let me tell you something about what would be the objective and what would be the series will be all about. Now, this objective of the series would be special emphasis on India's relationship, not only with neighborhood countries, but with world economies like USA, China, so on and so forth, together with world organizations like WTO, United Nations, etc. Now, some people may have the doubt whether this would cover the whole syllabus. Let me tell you very frankly that for the GS portion or the GS2, which we have, everything would be covered so exhaustively that nothing would come out of this thing. And for the people who have political science and IR as optional paper, the second part of this paper 2 and section B would be covered to the largest extent possible. Now, this is the title series. We'll be presenting about 18 to 20 lessons in this series, and it would cover everything from India, its neighborhood countries, to world organizations, and everything which could come under the hood of IR, international relations. Now, it's important to understand why do you need to read international relations. Now, let's talk about some statistics. If you analyze the GS2 paper for the last 3-4 years, you will get a feeling that around 4 to 5 questions on an average are being asked from international relations. So that approximates to around 45 to 50 marks. And it's a huge count in GS papers. And for those who have political science and IR as optional subject, section B, it's approximately 130 to 145 marks, would be directly coming from the recent international relations. And the most critical point is its ease of updation. Now, IR being a very current subject needs updation, but once you get an understanding or broad understanding of the basic concepts and the pillars or the levers of international relations, be it India's relation with other countries or with world organizations, you can easily update it. And sources are limited, and one of the most prominent sources still being the Hindu. Now, let us understand what we have to study when we talk about international relations. International relations in itself is a huge syllabus. So you can even do a PhD while reading international relations. But keeping in mind the trend and analyzing the questions that have been asked in the recent years, 4-5 things of prominence come out. Now, first is the world order. This thing would be dealt with in today's lecture on what world order is, how the world economies are playing, what are the factors that are leading to its change, or is it static, so on and so forth. Another important and most critical thing for UPSC and other civil service examinations is basic relationship and the levers and pillars of India's relationship with other countries. So it is basically India and its relationship with world. So you have world organizations, even world other countries. The third point is the world power relations. We'll understand, and we have to have a broad and a holistic view of what are the national interests of various countries, how are they driving forces of their foreign policy. Last but not the least is the treaties and summits that have been taking place in the recent year. Now, we all know about the P5+1 Lausanne Framework Agreement that has been recently signed between the 6 countries and Iran. So these are the things. You don't have to mug up the whole agreement, but what you have to have is a basic understanding of the pillars on which that agreement is based. Now, let's jump directly to the sources part. Now, one of the most complete source would be the Unacademy video series. Be rest assured that everything would be covered. Another important source is The Hindu, and for those people who have international relations and political science as their optional subject, they can even watch India's World on Rajya Sabha TV to get a good understanding of the current figures. Now, let's jump directly to today's topic. Now, today we are going to have the basic understanding of what world order is. Now, when I say world order, what I actually mean is arrangement and positions of countries in the global power. The important word is arrangement. So when we say something is arranged, there has to be a basis for its arrangement. So what becomes the basis for arrangement? So in international relations, it is the power. It is the power of the countries to get their works done, to further their national interest, that forms the basis of the world order. Now, this power can be of many types, right? We all know, we talk about India being a we are having a demographic advantage. So it becomes our power. Then USA is famous for its military power. It is through its military strength that it's having the power to make things happen. Then there's one more important source is geography. Now, when I say geography, what I actually mean is natural resources. Now, we can easily understand why today West Asia, because of its oil resources, still founds prominence in foreign policies of every country around the world. You take any country and you will have good relationships or tending to have good relationships with West Asia. It's just because of the natural resources that are present there. And then obviously the economic strength of the country. Now USA, because of the financial capital of the world, the dollar regime, these all forms a part of the world order. Now, we all have used and heard these common words like unipolar world order, multipolar, bipolar. But let us understand whether this world order is static or dynamic. Now, if it's static, then it's okay. But if it's dynamic, then means different countries have the capacity or capability to enhance their powers and then change the world order. For a basic example, like we all know that pre-1991, it was a bipolar world. So bi means two and polar means two poles of power. So you had US versus the USSR. Now, in post-1991, there was a phase of unipolar world order. That was USA because of the disintegration of Russia, right? Let's now understand bipolar world order. Why I'm taking bipolar world order in the first place is because chronologically speaking, after the World War II, it was the bipolar world order that came into existence. And it was only after 1991 that unipolar world order came into existence. So it becomes easy to grasp this concept of bipolar or unipolar world order. Now, when we say bipolar world order, we all know bi means two, and so there were two poles. Now, it was a product of Cold War. We know that it was a fight between communism and capitalism. So it was the ideological battle between these two blocks, right? And it was also differentiated by economic formations. So one side you had the community ownership and communism, and other side you had the individual being preferred, the laissez-faire, where you had the free let alone markets should market driven forces, or the, as we say, the market hands that should regulate the economies. Now, it was at this time the tendency was a balance of power. In layman terms, balance of power means that one country or a group of countries balancing power or capabilities of other countries, right? So you had the Cold War bipolarity at that time, and even some scholars went to the extent of saying that it was because of the bipolarity that there was no World War III. So when we say that there was no World War III, some scholars like Kenneth Waltz in 1979 propounded the theory that it was the bipolar world order which was inherently stable. This is also marked by balance of terror and mutually assured destruction. Now, what do we understand by balance of terror? Now, balance of terror means let's have a picture of pre-1949. Now, why I'm saying 1949 is because pre-1949, only USA had the nuclear or the atomic bombs, and USSR was not having that. So USSR was terrified. So it was the balance of terror at that time. But after both countries had their nuclear weapons, it was mutually assured destruction, when each country was having this understanding that if it attacks the other country, it would have repercussions which would lead to its destruction as well. So it is called the term of mutually assured destruction. Now let's understand, it was a period of tensions. We all know there was mistrust and there was suspicion that was on the rise. Cuban Missile Crisis was one of the peaks of this bipolar world order, right? It is often, but the main point was it often neglected the issues which were plaguing countries like India, which were just independent and which were on a developing path. There was no talk about development, no talk about sustainable development, poverty eradication, so on and so forth. It was this time when Nehru gave the third way or the non-alignment movement, and it was praised as preventing the Cold War from turning hot. Let's understand this from a picture perspective, right? See, the red block is the communist block, and this is the free world or the USA block or the free world economy. Now we'll continue in the part 2 with other terms like unipolar and multipolar world order. Thank you.